Coming up tonight on Inside City Hall.
Our current response system is not one that is setting our city up for success. It is one that deeply needs to be changed.
Mayor Mamdani is responding to criticism over how the city deals with calls tied to mental health issues.
I see the officers, I see the incarcerated people, and my job is to lift that up.
Our Courtney Gross sat down for an exclusive one-on-one with the city's new correction commissioner, Stanley Richards. I'll talk more about Mayor Mamdani's pick to lead the correction department when I'm joined by the president of the union representing correction officers, Benny Bascio. And we'll bring you a investigation which found that thousands of people arrested by federal immigration agents are being held in detention without receiving bond hearings. For the best news, debate, and analysis of New York politics, join us inside City Hall. Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. I'm Errol Lewis. Mayor Mamdani was peppered with questions today about the police shooting of a 22-year-old man in Queens last week after his family called 911 saying that he was in emotional distress. With that case getting so much attention, police body cam footage of the incident was released just a short while ago. Our Kelly Mena joins me now with tonight's top story. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Errol. And that body camera footage was released about an hour ago. It comes in the fallout of criticism and outrage over a family's call for help that turned into their son being shot by police officers. That is a moment a police officer shot 22-year-old Jabez Chakraborty. The incident was caught on a body camera worn by police officers who responded to his family's call for a mental health crisis in Queens last week. The video was released Tuesday night in the wake of the Chakraborty family criticizing the city's response. Jabez remains on a ventilator, according to his family, after being shot several times.
Drop the knife! Shots fired, shots fired.
Earlier in the day, Mayor Zohran Mamdani delivered sobering words about the incident and how the city needs to change its response.
Jabez needs mental health treatment, not criminal prosecution by a district attorney.
Mamdani has long championed a different way for the city to respond to a person in a mental health crisis with plans for a Department of Community Safety. However, he said he still believes police officers need to respond to dangerous situations.
When there is a violent situation, such as with a weapon, NYPD will be on the scene.
In the video released by the NYPD, you can see that officers are led into the home and immediately spot Chakraborty, who is in the kitchen. Chakraborty is seen grabbing a knife and moving toward the officers. The responding police officers attempt to move back and put a door between them and Chakraborty, but he pushes through. At that point, an officer is seen shooting him multiple times. The Chakraborty family has called the incident shocking and outrageous. They claim they called for an ambulance, but police officers arrived instead. A spokesperson for the police department said the family called for an involuntary transfer and were aware that that meant a police and EMS response. In a Friday statement, the family said, "We did not call the police. Instead of medical responders, the NYPD arrived and shot our son multiple times right in front of us." Mamdani said he is currently working on how to implement his new agency, but that the safety of everyone involved in a mental health crisis call is top priority.
The North Star that we are building towards is one where every single person is safe. That includes the affected individual, that includes the family, that includes police officers, and that includes additional city personnel who are responding.
And the mayor said earlier today that the entire incident, including whether police officers asked the family about their immigration status and whether they demanded phones at the scene, is under investigation, Errol.
It's really remarkable that they released the body cam footage so quickly. There are times when it's been months or even years where the NYPD refuses to provide that information.
Right, and then we've seen families trying to fight for that body camera footage for so long. This is seeming like a different administration, a different time, you know, and I think for Mayor Mamdani, he actually met with the family in the wake of this shooting, which is from the mayors that we've seen previously is really unheard of, and I think he's trying to take a different approach towards this. We know that from his campaigning, he said for a long time that the way the city handles mental health crises is not working, and he wants something different. But what does that look like? You know, it was interesting to hear that he said weapons means police officers need to respond. So how does this new Department of Community Safety work if that is still going to be the same way that the city is going to respond?
Okay, thanks very much, Kelly. Meanwhile, Mayor Mamdani selected his new correction commissioner over the weekend. Stanley Richards will become the first formerly incarcerated person to lead that department. Richards sat down exclusively with our Courtney Gross in his first interview, discussing his past and the future of Rikers Island. Here's part of that conversation.
For the last 35 years, I have been working to be part of the solution about when people pay their price, pay their debt to society, when they come home, giving people an opportunity to rebuild their lives. And for those who are detained and incarcerated, use that opportunity to think about and get access to resources so they don't have to come back.
How would your relationship be with the union?
My relationship with the union is going to be in partnership. I think what the union is doing is protecting its members, making sure that its members feel valued, and that aligns with me. That aligns with my vision and my mission. So I want to be in partnership with the unions to make sure that the officers, number one, are safe and protected. Number two, that they don't feel isolated and thrown away, that they are valued. And I'm going to come to the table just like that.
Have you spoken to the head of the union, Benny Basio, yet?
I have not spoken to him. I plan to do that as one of the first things I want to do. I received the email from the captains union, and I'm open to conversations, and I think they are as well. I think what they want is fairness, and they want to be heard. I will have an open door, and as opposed to developing strategies, implementing strategies, and then telling the union about it, I want them at the table. I want them helping us shape the strategies.
Do you think that the union contract, as part of this remediation manager and this federal receivership that is going to happen on Rikers Island and in the Department of Correction, there is a mechanism for the remediation manager to reopen the contract and say things need to change here? Do you think that the contract needs to be reopened?
I think that's a conversation between law, the remediation manager, and the judge. I think for me, my role is to work with the remediation manager to address the 18 contempt orders, to see that, to then build a foundation that we could be in compliance with the Nunez decree. And I need the union, I need the membership, I need community members to make that happen. And I'm looking forward to working with Nick Demmel to make that happen.
What can you do to finally fix Rikers Island?
That's the seed planting work, is looking at all of those policies and updating them, making sure that we're doing training that is appropriate for the people that we have detained today. That is making sure that we have posts covered, making sure that we're modernizing our systems. I think the department right now relies too much on paper, and we need to get the department into the 21st century. So my job is to make sure that we begin to address those entrenched practices so that we can move into the 21st century, build the borough-based jails, have our officers safe, have incarcerated people safe, and give people that are in our custody an opportunity to build a different life.
We are on this unprecedented track of a remediation manager coming in. Nick Demmel, you mentioned him previously.
Yep.
There is some confusion because in past receiverships across the country, this has only been done less than a dozen times or so. Typically, a remediation manager or a receiver comes in and has control over the entire facility.
Right.
Nonetheless, a commissioner is staying within this structure, and you're going to have a job. But I think to a lot of stakeholders, it's confusing as to who is the real boss here. Where does the buck stop?
I think the phrase is, are you going to be in partnership? And the answer is yes. The remediation manager has the authority afforded by Judge Swain, and she's given him the authority to deal with some of the things that were entrenched in the department that prevented the department from being in compliance. I will work in partnership with the remediation manager to do those things, because when we do those things, that is about making sure that our jails are safe.
But what happens when you disagree? Does Nick Demel's word, is that the final word?
I think what you'll see is Nick and I working hand in hand. If we have differences of strategy, we will work those differences out. The North Star for Nick and the North Star for me is safe jails.
Our Courtney Gross joins me now with more analysis. And Courtney, it doesn't sound like you got a clear answer to that question of who's going to make the final call if there's a tough decision or one where they have a sort of a split opinion about what to do.
Yeah, and there is a structure in place as part of this years-long lawsuit. The judge has said that they will eventually go to the court if there is some sort of disagreement. I mean, we know there are already conversations between these two. In fact, they are supposed to be sitting down today here in New York City to discuss, I'm assuming, some of this.
Well, a lot has been made of the fact that Stanley Richards was incarcerated himself as a young man. But he actually did a tour of duty as the #2 guy in the Department of Correction not that long ago.
Yeah, and it was a very difficult time for the Department of Correction. This was for about a couple of months during 2020-21. The very end of the de Blasio administration, he served as a top deputy under then Commissioner Vincent Schiraldi, and that time period had a lot of difficulty between the City Hall, the de Blasio administration, Vincent Schiraldi, and the union in particular. And I know that you're going to be having the head of the union on the show in just a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how they could potentially repair that relationship, because they were absolutely at odds just a few years ago.
One thing the new commissioner said that I think is something we've certainly been reporting on, which is the high degree of violence of detainees versus staff, of staff on detainees. I mean, that's really what led the judge to step in and say, this has got to stop.
Absolutely, and we haven't really seen real solutions for that yet, but I'm assuming we're going to be hearing about.
Okay, thanks very much, Courtney. I'm going to be talking more about this with Benny Bascio. He is the president of the Correction Officers Benevolent Association, and we'll be speaking with him a little bit later. Right now, it's time for a break. When we come back, polls are open until 9 p.m. in parts of Manhattan and Queens to fill seats in the State Assembly and the State Senate. We'll bring you those details in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day, with in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information. Head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
When you're connected with Spectrum, you get 5G and fiber-powered internet combined for the fastest wireless speeds. So you can sweat for the right reasons. It's only the seamless connection you love at home, everywhere you go. It's only everything.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of, they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. There are 3 special elections taking place today for the state legislature, including Mayor Mamdani's old assembly seat. Mamdani made an endorsement in that race, but it did not stop 2 other contenders from getting into that election. Our Dan Rivoli joins me now with a roundup of all of the different races. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Errol, and that's what makes this race just a little extra special. It's actually competitive, where typically in these special elections for state legislature, party insiders pick the Democratic nominee. But in the case for Mamdani's old assembly seat, you had 2 additional candidates petition their way onto the ballot, and they are running in the 36th Assembly District. That's in Western Queens, parts of Astoria, and Long Island City. And the 3 people running are all Democratic Socialists. That is the political organization that Mayor Mamdani belongs to. And the candidates from left to right, you have Diana Moreno, Mary Jo Bida, and Rana Abdelhamid. Moreno has Mayor Mamdani's support, as well as the support from the New York City Democratic Socialists of America and the Queens Democratic Party. So she will be on the Democratic Party ballot line. We caught up with Moreno on the campaign trail on that last day of voting about what Mayor Mamdani's support means for her in this race.
He's prepared for someone to carry on that legacy of ensuring that Astoria and Long Island City are represented by a Democratic Socialist, and that he has the unwavering allies in Albany that he needs to pass the type of state budget that we're going to need in order for him to get his policies through.
And Abdelhamid took a break from the campaign trail to speak with New York One by Zoom. She also has some pretty potent progressive support from Nydia Velázquez, the retiring congresswoman and an icon of progressive politics here in New York. And she told New York One what that endorsement means for her independent bid in this campaign.
Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez's endorsement is another validator for our campaign, that we have strong support behind us, that people have seen the work that I've been doing in this district since I've been a teenager, that people believe in the race that we're building, that it is a race that is truly representative of the communities across the district.
And there are 2 legislative races in Manhattan. You have City Councilman Eric Botchers, the Democratic nominee. He's on the right. He's the Democratic nominee for an open state Senate seat on the west side. And on the left side of your screen, City Councilman Keith Powers. He's term limited out of the council and running for an open state assembly seat. And should he win, he'll be going up to Albany to continue serving constituents on the east side of Manhattan. Polls close at 9 p.m. Errol.
Has there been a lot of activity in some of these races in Manhattan?
You know, interestingly, I live on the Upper West Side, and I was walking by a polling place. It was on my way during my day. There were actually people in the polling location. I saw people with the voting stickers. Manhattan loves to vote. It's like their hobby. It doesn't have to be a competitive race. There just has to be a ballot that they can fill in a bubble. They'll be there. So Manhattan votes a lot. We just saw early voting totals in Manhattan alone was more than 5,000, which is quite unique for even a competitive special election, much less one where the Democratic nominee is, well, you know, all but assured the victory.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind, even though it was slightly less than bitterly cold, it's still not great weather for people to be coming out in.
Yeah, exactly. And yet people still did it, I guess, if they had a morning to kill. And we should note, they do have Republican contenders. There were GOP nominees, but, you know, if there's going to be some kind of red revolution on the west side, it's more likely to be a socialist than a Republican. But they do have a choice in this race.
All right. Thanks very much, Stan. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, a New York One investigation has found that people arrested by federal immigration agents are being held in detention facilities without bond hearings. We'll explain why in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time. And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan. Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood, because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories, but first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. A New York One investigation has found that there are thousands of people who have been arrested by immigration authorities and are being held without getting bond hearings. People are being held for months on end, all due to a change that did not make headlines by the Trump administration. Our Eric Feldman spent months looking into what is happening not only here in New York, but all around the country. He joins us now with a story you'll only see on New York One. Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, Errol. This is something that we learned about from a story we did in the fall. Someone who was held for months on end, not getting a bond hearing, all because of this little-known change by the Trump administration. And we asked her lawyer, how many of these cases are happening around the country? And she said, well, why don't you call up as many immigration attorneys as you can find around the country and get that answer? So we took her up on it. Here's what we found.
You're looking at a man who asked we blur his face and that we not use his real name, that we call him Marwin, because as his ankle monitor serves as a constant reminder, his immigration case is still pending.
As I'm standing outside the vehicle.
He's never talked about that morning. He was on his way to work in Putnam County when ICE arrested him this summer.
The officer says, would you step inside the vehicle, please? And I said, would you give me a minute to pray?
In 2001, he says he left Guatemala and crossed the southern border without inspection by an immigration official, which is illegal. His lawyer tells us Marwin has a pending asylum case.
I was never arrested in my life.
Marwin says immigration authorities held him for more than 2 months in a detention facility in Michigan, away from his wife and 3 kids in New York. He described his first call with his 9-year-old.
And she says, what is it that you're doing that you can't come home? I says, I'm busy right now, but I'll make time. I'm going to come over. And then she said, she says to me, hey, Dad, will you play with me on the phone? And I pretended that I was there.
At that point, he didn't know if he would ever go home. Usually when someone is arrested and booked by immigration authorities, they go before an immigration judge where both sides argue whether the person arrested should be let out on bond. But that hearing didn't happen for Marwin because of a little-known recent change by the Trump administration. In 1996, President Bill Clinton signed comprehensive immigration legislation into law, one of the key provisions for people who entered the country illegally without checking in at a port of entry and are later arrested. They can receive a bond hearing if they've been here more than 2 years. If they've been in the country less than that, they can face mandatory detention, and they'd be locked up without a bond hearing until their case is settled. But in September 2025, President Donald Trump's Department of Justice had a new interpretation. Now, anyone who entered the United States without inspection is subject to mandatory detention, meaning they're ineligible for bond hearing, whether they came 2 years ago or 20. That's why Marwin, who came here 25 years ago, was denied a bond hearing after being arrested last year.
Being there, you just give up.
According to data from ICE, there have been nearly 150,000 people detained from September to December of 2025. But how many of them are being held without bond hearings because of the Trump administration's new interpretation? The data didn't say. So New York One reached out to ICE, but we never got an answer.
New York One spent months emailing nearly 1,000 immigration lawyers across all 50 states, asking how many of their clients had failed to receive bond hearings due to this new interpretation.
It's close to 50 since this rule change happened.
7 clients that have been detained.
Maybe half a dozen?
It's in the dozens.
More than 2 dozen.
200 lawyers who responded estimate collectively they've had more than 3,000 clients in the U.S. longer than 2 years and locked up without bond hearings. One of the more surprising people we heard from is on Long Island.
So you were an immigration judge until
September 4th, 2025 this year.
David K.S. Kim was an immigration judge at 26 Federal Plaza in Lower Manhattan for 3 years when he says the Trump administration fired him without cause in September, a claim the DOJ declined to comment on. So instead of being on the bench, Kim is representing at least one detainee and sued the federal government to get him a bond hearing before one of his former colleagues.
I look at it more as protecting my clients' interests, their rights, especially due process rights, which I feel they're being violated by our current government.
Kim is one of many immigration attorneys who have filed habeas petitions, arguing the federal government is unconstitutionally detaining people based on the Department of Justice's new interpretation of immigration laws passed 30 years ago. The American Immigration Council tracked outcomes in these petitions for almost all of 2025. There are 28 federal district judges who sided with the government that these non-citizens did not deserve a bond hearing. 260 federal district court judges disagreed with the government, often calling for non-citizens to get bond hearings or to be released. Like Marwan, who was let out after more than 2 months because his lawyer successfully filed a petition.
It was like a nightmare.
And Ukrainian Larissa Kostak, who New York One spoke to in October from her Brooklyn home after she was held for more than 3 months in a Louisiana correction center.
And that's a huge miracle. I'm back home.
A spokeswoman with the Executive Office for Immigration Review within the Department of Justice says the agency declines to comment on litigation-related matters, and despite hundreds of judges ruling in favor of the detainees, they only apply in those cases, not to future ones around the country. So the issue has remained tied up in the courts, but one judge intended to change that in December. In California, Judge Sunshine Suzanne Sykes not only vacated the government's policy on mandatory detention, but agreed with the detainees' lawyers, ruling those who brought the suit should have been granted a bond hearing, and as should anyone similar who entered without inspection around the country.
So when you read that, how clear is it to you what her instructions are to the government moving forward?
So it's very clear.
Judge Shira Shenlin was a judge of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York for more than 2 decades. She reviewed not only the California case, but a screenshot provided to New York One by the American Immigration Lawyers Association of the apparent response by the DOJ's chief immigration judge, saying this ruling in the California case is not a nationwide injunction and that the government's new interpretation remains binding precedent on agency adjudicators when it comes to bond hearings. Shenlin says this guidance is wrong.
They are essentially saying we don't have to obey the court's order, and that's a very dangerous thing.
So as it appears these detentions will continue, more individual habeas petitions are being filed, but doing so can be costly and unaffordable to many. Tens of thousands of dollars, according to lawyers New York One spoke with. Marwan says people in his community lent his family the money they needed for his lawyer.
They were very, very generous.
To him, it was the only path forward, trying anything for his family to stay here in New York.
And we still believe that this country has a lot more to offer for anybody who's lucky to stay here.
Yeah, so we also wanted to know whether these cases are continuing, whether people are continuing to be held without bond, even though that ruling in California said that people who entered without inspection should be given a bond hearing. And we found a case in Massachusetts, and the ACLU there is arguing that there are cases that they know of in their district where people are continuing to be held not being given a bond hearing because it appears of that chief immigration judge's memo.
So even if people in Massachusetts are not getting the relief that a judge in California called for them to get, perhaps people, at least in California, are going to be getting that relief going forward.
Well, from that memo from the chief immigration judge, it is implying that everyone needs to follow what the Board of Immigration Appeals within the Department of Justice said is that the new interpretation of this law that passed under Bill Clinton 30 years ago needs to follow.
Look, if you don't have enough money to hire a lawyer, as apparently somebody on Long Island was able to do, what happens in those cases?
Well, so there are a couple options. There are people who are continuing to be held in detention centers around the country for 6 months, even longer. And then other people, we learned, are actually self-deporting. We talked to one lawyer in Charlotte, North Carolina. She's had 50 clients who have been detained without getting bond hearings. 40 of them, she told us, decided to just leave.
Yeah, which sounds like that. I guess in some ways that's the real goal or the real strategy. Is that where the immigration lawyers you've talked to, they think that's kind of where this is all heading?
They definitely think that there is an incentive to try to get people to self-deport, but where they think this could actually head is to the Supreme Court. And in that Massachusetts case, the district judge said, could this get expedited to the Supreme Court? Because there just seems to be a legal stalemate happening here.
Okay, great work. Thanks very much, Eric. We are going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll turn back to Mayor Mamdani's pick to lead the Department of Correction when I'm joined by the president of the Correction Officers Benevolent Association. Benny Bascio will be with me next. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network. And factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As we reported earlier, the city's Department of Correction has a new commissioner. It's Stanley Richards, a former Rikers Island detainee himself. In many ways, Richards will not be running the city's jail system, however, because a federal judge last month appointed what is called a remedial manager to oversee Rikers. So with this divided leadership, what will it be like to be behind bars at Rikers, either as a detainee or indeed as a corrections officer or a civilian staff member? Here to share his thoughts about the new order of things and the new commissioner and the state of the city's jails is the president of the Correction Officers Benevolent Association. It's Benny Bascio. Welcome to the program. Great, very good to see you.
Good to see you too, Errol. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, the titles that are in your union, is it all of the correction staff, or is it most of them?
All New York City correction officers.
All New York City correction
COBRA
officers.
represents all New York City correction.
And about how many members in your union?
We have about 5,200 active members and about 10,000 retirees.
Got it. So actually, before I ask you about the new commissioner, how do you feel about this this remedial manager, basically a receiver? The system has been put into receivership in effect that's going to answer to a federal judge. Have you met Mr. Demmel? Do you have a kind of sense of what's going to be happening?
I have not met Mr. Demmel yet. We were told he was on Rikers today, visiting one of the facilities. Looking forward to meeting with him. You know, as you know, we're dealing with federal monitor, now remediation manager, new commissioner. So we've been going through a lot of things, you know, to say the least. But, you know, we know he came from Vermont. I think he did about 4 years. He's a correction manager. So we're hoping that he brings, you know, new insight to what we've been dealing with, the terrible conditions we're in.
Okay. Stanley Richards, we asked him. I know you've dealt with him before because he was, I guess, the #2 in the department for a number of months towards the end of the de Blasio administration. Anyway, we asked him for his thoughts about the union. Here's what he had to say.
I want them at the table. I want them helping us shape the strategies because I don't think our end goal is different. They want officers to be safe, so do I.
How would you describe your relationship with the union when you were there previously in 2021?
I think, as you said, it was very rocky. We had significant officers out sick. Officers were doing doubles and triples. It was a really scary time. And I don't think the unions were brought in to the strategies, and so they felt isolated and unappreciated.
As I look back at a very tough time in the history of the department, what's your sense of whether or not you'll be able to work with the new commissioner?
I mean, look, Errol, at the end of the day, we'll work with anybody. You know, I understand his past. You know, in the 80s, he was a former inmate. I'm not really concerned about his past. Not as much as his tenure as first deputy commissioner when he was here, you know, for 6 months or so. You know, my members got scapegoated. When him and the former commissioner, Schiraldi, came into office, we were basically blamed for feigning illness, which was just not the case, you know. We were in the epicenter of COVID. We had members dealing with long COVID, right, out sick. And to, you know, basically say we're out there feigning illness was, you know, terrible. And it kind of set us in off on the wrong foot, you know, and that was really the concern is you're blaming our members. I mean, we even had to go to state legislature to get legislation passed that you can't penalize anybody that is out sick for COVID. And the governor signed that bill, you know, but blaming us out the gate we thought was problematic. And he was right when he said that we were not at the table. So many policies are implemented. You know, we have so much bureaucracy, federal monitor, the Board of Corrections. Now, you know, we've been through 5 commissioners, Errol. 5 commissioners since I became president in 2020. And the boots on the ground seem to not be able to do anything right in the monitor's 20 reports that he's put out against us. And, you know, the reality, the monitor's made a lot of money off the taxpayers in New York City, in essence of $30–40 million, we estimate. And why would we ever be in compliance with what the monitor wants? Because it's just a cash cow, as we feel scapegoated, and that's the problem that we feel.
Okay, so we now are entering a new era with the new commissioner, as well as this remediation manager, receiver in effect. What do you hope to see come out of this? If you could sort of put your wish list in front of these gentlemen, what will things look like, say, a year or 2 from now?
You know, staffing levels would be up because we're down 40% since 2019. You know, we had about 9,000 and change officers, down to 5,200. A seat at the table to really, you know, bring forth ideas to us, right? We know what works and what doesn't work. You know, I've been 27 years as a correction officer. My members are the boots on the ground and know firsthand on what is going to work and what is not going to work. And we should brainstorm on these ideas collectively. That is my goal, you know, get staffing level up so that my members have a quality of life. I mean, Errol, I have officers working 150 hours a month of overtime. You know, we were doing 24-hour shifts. And we were getting blamed for everything that people feel is wrong with the criminal justice system. But
explain that. This is something I've been wondering about for a while, because I look at some of the reports when they come in. 5,200 officers, even if you divided it by 3 for shifts, with a total inmate count of what, about 8,000 or so? 7,000?
7,000 now.
Yeah,
correct. But not everybody's at work at the same time. You got vacation picks, you got academy. You know.
But it's still a very high ratio compared to other systems, right?
I mean, listen, I don't know how the other systems have like indirect supervision. We have direct supervision. We need officers on the floor. You know, when you're dealing in a housing area with 50 inmates and they're all gang affiliated, it puts a lot of pressure on us. You know, overworked. I mean, Errol, we don't live in a third world country. You could argue that this is the richest city in America. You know, they let Rikers fall apart and it's the correction officers' fault. Like, we're not in charge of infrastructure. You know, fix the cells. Obviously, we're not getting off the island in 2027, right? So fix the cells so that everybody can be safe. I mean, my members have had to endure close to 700 assaults on them in 2025. You know, almost 30.
It's 2 a day every day.
Yeah, almost 30 sexual assaults. And, you know, the interesting thing that I got about Stanley Richards when he first, you know, spoke, he said, my message to staff about transparency and accountability. Well, listen, he should recognize now that he's not the leader of the Fortune Society, inmate advocacy group. Now he's the leader of the second largest uniform force in the city of New York. You know, and we need help. The reality is that transparency and accountability goes both ways. When you talk about accountability, it can't be only accountability for my members, the correction officers. You know, where's the accountability for those 700 assaults on my members? You know, should there not be any accountability for those actions?
You know, this is something you and I have talked about. I mean, it's to an extent, I try and remind my viewers of this whenever the opportunity comes up, but that something happens every single day, that there are assaults on your members, the people who are, you know, throwing feces or throwing urine or, you know, a physical attack of some kind. And what was supposed to happen is that technically, because Rikers is part of the Bronx DA is supposed to have people there to basically arrest and charge people on the spot. Is that not happening?
I mean, they get rearrested, but their crimes in jail run concurrent with what they're inside for, with their street crimes. So they know that they're not going to be added consequences, and this is our biggest problem. You know, the lawmakers want to take away viable deterrents, consequences for those actions. A crime is a crime no matter where it's committed. Why should crimes in jail be treated differently than they are in the streets of New York? We are there to enforce the law, right? And they have to be accountable for those actions. Or other than that, why would they change their behavior, Errol?
Understood. Well, this is going to be a three-way conversation at least between you, the commissioner, and the new monitor. Please keep us up to date on it, and we wish the best of luck to you as we try and do what I think everybody wants, which is to try and keep the level of violence in the jails down.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Errol, for having me again.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll take a look at Representative Mike Lawler's seat in the Hudson Valley, where recent polls show Democrats gaining ground as they try and take that congressional seat. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer. As chief meteorologist at New York One, I'm honored to be able to help New Yorkers plan their day.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts with your weather on the ones on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
I moved from Dallas to Los Angeles all by myself. The order of things I wanted to set up was internet, water, then power. I needed to take a shower, but like I really did need the internet for work and like to watch my shows. That's like kind of a crazy thing to admit in front of a camera. Pretend I didn't say that. I got to Spectrum. I was so relieved that I was getting the best bang for my buck. It was a huge weight taken off of my shoulders.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. A new poll shows an improving political climate for Democrats who are running for the U.S. House of Representatives here in New York. A congressman's stormy town hall recently underscored the growing challenges faced by Republicans in New York. Shannon Ryan in our Washington, D.C. bureau joins me now to break down some of the numbers. Good evening, Shannon. I know you spoke to some experts today. What are they saying is the cause of this shift in favor of Democrats?
Well, Errol, first they pointed out the obvious. Republicans are in control of the House, the Senate, the White House, and typically the party in power. They do lose seats in midterms. It's actually been nicknamed the midterm curse. It's nothing new. However, those analysts I spoke with said this extends far beyond that. Take a listen.
A combative town hall for Rockland County Republican Congressman Mike Lawler.
Bro, you can leave now. Goodbye. Goodbye. We won't proceed until you're gone. Goodbye.
Lawler shouted at, even cursed out, as he spoke about President Donald Trump's immigration policies.
If you actually want to have a constructive dialogue, then stop. If you just want to scream and yell for 2 hours, then scream and yell for 2 hours.
Sheriff's deputies removed a handful of attendees from the weekend event at Rockland Community College. Last month, the Cook Political Report, a nonpartisan newsletter, shifted its ratings for Lawler's district, New York 17, from lean Republican to a toss-up.
Because we believe it's increasingly clear that Republican Congressman Mike Lawler is likely going to face his toughest race yet this November.
Aaron Covey leads House coverage for the Cook Report, which also shifted 3 other races toward New York Democrats. Under current congressional lines, House Democrats only need to pick up 3 seats to gain control of the House.
Overall, we believe that Democrats should have a good chance at taking control of the House this November.
Covey says that assessment extends far beyond the so-called midterm curse, a phenomenon where the party in power loses seats. Instead, identifying 2 key issues facing down House Republicans: affordability and immigration. New Siena Research Institute data shows 56% of the more than 800 New Yorkers they polled disapprove of how the Trump administration is handling affordability matters, and 58% disapprove of how deportations are being handled.
And Errol, a spokesperson for the DCCC, that's the campaign arm of the Democratic Party, told me in a statement, and I am quoting here, the path to the House majority, it runs straight through New York. They added that they feel House Republicans know that they're in deep trouble come November. Now, I also spoke with the NRCC, and they gave me a statement standing by Lawler's record. They also pointed out that he's raised more money than any other House GOP member at this point. And I spoke to a number of people on background, one GOP operative telling me that they feel really good about Lawler's odds, pointing to Republican voter registration numbers in the district. Those picked up about a point within the past year.
Okay, so now, Shannon, we have seen a number of members try and avoid footage like what you showed us by simply not having town hall meetings. Is this something that we can expect maybe Representative Lawler to follow suit and maybe not have any more scenes like that?
You know, Lawler likes to joke about his Irish and Italian heritage, saying that he never holds his tongue. I don't think you're going to see Lawler stepping away from town halls. As you saw, he was pretty bold in the way that he did respond to people who opposed him during that town hall. One of the things, though, Errol, that has stuck out to me is how we are seeing some Democrats backpedaling. So, for example, Tom Suozzi, he voted in favor of DHS funding. That was prior to the killing of Alex Preddy. He's received a lot of flack from that. He put out a statement sort of stepping away, saying that he failed to see that as a referendum on ICE. And we've also seen some backpedaling from Gillen's office as well. Okay. Thanks very much, Shannon. It is time now for a break. Coming up, that Siena College poll also has some very good news for Governor Hochul. Her favorability rating is up, and she holds a comfortable lead over her challengers. We'll bring you the details in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Governor Kathy Hochul is celebrating strong poll numbers just before the state Democratic convention in Syracuse, where she is poised to be officially nominated as the party's pick for re-election. The Siena University poll also shows voters back her anti-ICE proposals and her plans to fund universal child care. The governor is also poised to reveal her running mate choice by the end of the week. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan joins me now with the latest. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. And this is pretty good timing if you're the Hochul campaign to see the governor hitting record favorability figures, the highest the governor has had during her tenure as governor. 49% favorability rating compared to 40% unfavorability rating. Again, it's a jump from December figures. And also, if you look at the head-to-head between the governor against Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, her Democratic challenger, she's also up by a 64 to 11% margin. If you look at the Republican, Bruce Blakeman, she's also leading him by a 54% to 28% margin. So if you talk to any of the experts, they're saying she's in a pretty good spot ahead of this week's convention. But then also looking at the issues, you know, this poll was conducted before the governor made her anti-ICE announcement just last week, where she said she wants to have counties that already have agreements with ICE to deputize local police officers. She wants to end that. It has not yet been passed by the state and the governor has not signed it. But this poll was conducted on the basis of other anti-ICE proposals she already announced in the State of the State. Number one being that people really support her effort to create sensitive locations, so not allowing ICE inside churches, hospitals, the grounds of schools without a judicial warrant. It's a practice that was upheld under the Biden administration. And people also really do like her idea to have New Yorkers being able to take legal action against ICE officers if they have allegedly violated constitutional rights. Now, the governor was asked about also her possible lieutenant governor pick, which sources have said we should know by this Thursday. We've had a couple of reported. New York One has also reported that some no's were given to the governor. The governor teased this announcement earlier. Let's take a listen.
I understand people let us know they don't want to go through vetting for whatever reason. You know, we cast a wide net to see who wanted to be in a large pool of people, and others, you know, so the offer went to one person. That one person accepted.
Thank you, guys.
Can you talk about your damn good.
So the governor, quick announcement that right there saying that she's asked somebody and they have accepted, but we still don't know who. But going back to the poll numbers again, although the poll was conducted just last week, it gives the governor a bit of a boost. She's already rolled out several union endorsements. Here's one of the experts who conducted the poll from Siena University commenting on what this means.
49% of New Yorkers view Hochul favorably, 40% view her unfavorably. That's not through the moon, but it's 7 points better than it was back in December. And that 49 favorable, highest it's ever been for Hochul. Previously, 48 had been her high.
And just going back to the state Democratic convention this week in Syracuse, Errol, we'll also hear and see Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, who has already confirmed that he is planning on attending, and the big question is who is he choosing for lieutenant governor? City and State reported that India Walton, the former primary winner, right, of the Buffalo mayoral a couple of years ago, it's unclear if she's accepted, but that's one of the prominent names. And also, as you mentioned before, she's from Buffalo, which is the governor's hometown.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of interesting. So now, the convention itself, I don't remember the last time there was just a one-day convention. And even Andrew Cuomo, who didn't really like the idea that people might start forming coalitions and conspiring against him. It sounds like Governor Hochul's not even going to allow enough time for that to happen.
Right. From what I know, there are receptions on Thursday evening, and then the convention itself will kick off on Friday. I spoke to the head of the state party, Jay Jacobs. He said he's trying to wrap it up by 3 o'clock. Another thing is the location, right? It's in Syracuse, New York. It's in upstate. Andrew Cuomo, the previous governor and conventions that I've covered, they've all been downstate, either in New York City or on Long Island. One person that I spoke to said that the governor might be trying to appeal more to the rest of the state and put some distance between her and Mayor Zohran Mamdani, who has really been the main character in so much of the political conversation over the last year.
Very interesting. Okay, thanks very much, Bernadette. That's going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
You might think Spectrum is just for your home, but Spectrum is seamless connectivity everywhere. It's the network making the other networks sweat. Connectivity from an actual internet company, because internet is what you actually use your phone for. It's way more than 5G. With Spectrum One, it's 5G and fiber-powered internet. Wireless speeds. Don't believe us? Ask this guy. He's one of millions who already know. Oh yeah, and this guy too. Turns out people like their mobile from a seamless connectivity company. That's why Spectrum is the country's fastest growing mobile provider. Spectrum One,